Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie. I have quite a bit to talk to you about today. So the first thing is that I decided to do a new subscription box. I heard about this from Brandy, from Brandy's reviews, and it really intrigued me. The price was really good, so I went ahead and picked it up. You can either do, I think it's like 1, 2, or 4 was the options that it gave me. So I did 4 because, you know, go big or go home. I also have like a month wrap up to do. I know it's kind of like the middle of the month, but I've already got like 24 books to talk about and I don't want to make it any longer. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. First of all, I'm loving this pink box. I think this is really cute packaging. So I haven't opened it or anything. It comes like this. And it's got a really cute little sticker and it says it's not hoarding if it's books, which I totally agree. They've got some really cute little swag and it's like, it's got a pin and I love their packaging. Like all of their packaging stuff is just super stinking cute. It says, I believe in happily ever after. I've heard of this author, but I don't have this book and I haven't read from this author yet. It's Treacherous by Alex Grayson and Melissa Topin. So I'm digging this. The thing that I really like about this book box is that you can choose the tropes that you want to get or the tropes that you don't want to get. Like, so if specifically, like, if you aren't into historical, like that's just not my thing. I know I say it's not my thing. I haven't read a whole bunch of it, so I'm not going to judge it, but it's not something that I personally like want to own. If I'm in the mood for historical romance, I think I'll go to Kindle Unlimited. I don't really necessarily want to get a book because it's just not my typical trope. Or if you hate surprise pregnancy, you can choose not to receive books with surprise pregnancies in them. I think that is really neat that you can pick and choose what is something that you enjoy versus not enjoy. All of these came signed, and let me see, because this is 2 authors, it did come with both of their signatures. That's really neat. The second book is Center of Gravity by K.K. Allen. Once again, this is an author that I have heard of, but I do not have any books by her, I don't believe. The third book that I got is Forever With Me by Kristen Proby. Pretty sure we've all heard of Kristen Proby. I don't know if I've ever read a Kristen Proby book either. But this is awesome because these are not books that I own, so that's great. The last book that I have is Open House. This is by T.C. Matson. And so I will go in and look at these and see all of the blurbs and everything. And then whenever I do my actual book haul in a couple of weeks, I will go ahead and show these again and tell you more about what they actually are about. But I just wanted to open that real quickly for you so you could see what is in the reveal book box. Alright, so now that that's done, I want to go ahead and jump right on in to my book review / reading wrap up for this month. This is going to be from July 16th, I almost said June. This is going to be from July 16th through August 17th, so right at a month. And I think, like I said, I think I read 24 books in the last 31 days. Let me go ahead and start with the last book that I talked about. I'm not going to do this from like my least favorite to my most favorite. I know I normally do that, but I would like to go ahead and just talk about them as I've read them over this last month. The first book that I have to talk about is going to be Gabriels Inferno. So this is by Sylvia Renard. I don't know if I said that right. I'm terrible with names. You guys know this. So I didn't really like this book. I gave it 3 stars. I was in a 3-star mood this month. You're going to see that. I rated a lot of books 3 stars. Even books that I was certain would be 5 stars were 3 stars this month. Just gotta throw that out there. So this is about Julia and Gabriel. And I really wanted to read this before watching the Passionflix movie of it. This book was super, super hard to get into, and it was all due to the writing style. I don't know what this author was thinking writing this way, but it was written in third point of view, and it was also very classically written, I guess you could say. it's almost like the author was trying to write classic literature, and it wasn't really in like today's wording, and it was just very hard to mug through. Once you get into the actual story and the actual plotline of the book, it was good. Gabriel is definitely an asshole hero. This is a student-teacher romance, if you didn't know. But once again, the writing style just completely ruined this book for me. It was just long and drawn out, and the fact that she was a pure virgin was just over the top done in this book, and I just got really tired of that. But overall, I mean, this book was just okay. Like, there's so many better student-teacher romances out there. I don't understand why this one is like that popular. Another thing about this month you're going to notice is that I had a theme going on, and that was I really wanted to read forbidden romance. So I read a lot of it. Unfortunately, I read a lot that wasn't so good, and then I read a couple that were really good. This next book was really good. It is Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. I know everybody's already read this book. I was like the last person, but I kind of hate paying for ebooks. I went ahead and finally did it, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was just a little too similar to Birthday Girl, in my opinion. That's the reason for the 4 stars, because Birthday Girl was a little bit better done, mainly because Birthday Girl was a lot longer book where Penelope had the means to make it better done. And this is just a very, very short, taboo, right to the point, steamy, no plot line really, other than the fact that she wants to sleep with her boyfriend's father because she catches her boyfriend cheating on her. That's literally the entire plot of this book. It was still very well done. It was extremely hot. 4 stars for what it was. The next book I have to talk about is The Truth About Us by Ali Martinez. This is the second part of her duet. The first part I talked about last week. I gave that book 4 stars. I also gave this book 4 stars. It was a really good ending. I enjoyed it. I don't want to talk about too much of it because the entire book is like basically a spoiler alert. So I'm not really going to talk about it. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoy Ali Martinez's writing. I read her way back before I even found like the majority of my romance books. It was like right whenever I was strictly into paranormal romance for several years, and I just recently came into contemporary in the last 2 to 3 years, and it kind of blew up for me and I fell in love with it. So Ali Martinez was one of the first authors that I found, and I just adore her work. I basically have binge read all of her books back to back in like 2018 whenever I first started, and I really like her. The next book I have to talk about is going to be Opal. This is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is part of her Lux series. It is book number 3, and I hate to say this because I was hyping this series up. I was super excited, could not believe how late I was to this party, and gave the first book like 5 stars. I think I gave the second book 5 stars as well. This one is a 3-star read for me. The books are starting to become a little too similar. It became very boring to me for like the majority of it. It took me almost a month to read this, and it was just kind of boring throughout the middle of it. Like, the beginning part was pretty good. The ending was really good. The endings are always the same though. Super action-packed for the last 20%, and then it ends on this crazy cliffhanger, and it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta read the next book. But then the next book is kind of like the same thing. It's kind of boring throughout the middle, and then it gets crazy good, and then it ends on this crazy cliffhanger that's like high anxiety. And while that's like, a lot of people love that in books, I personally don't. I have extremely high anxiety, and so reading that kind of a book, it really drives me nuts whenever books end on cliffhangers. And I'm the type of person that even if I give a book like 1 star, if it ends on a cliffhanger, it's going to drive me crazy until I find out what happens. So I'm likely to end up skimming the second book. It's just like this, I don't know, it's this anxiety thing with me. Anyway, long story short, Opal, 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as the other 2. Alright, the next book on my list is Pretty Dark and Dirty, but this is by Margot Scott. Alright, so this is the first book I've ever read by this author, and I would love to tell you that I didn't know what I was getting into whenever I read this book. That would be a lie. So, Margot Scott writes some interesting stuff. If you don't know, this book is, how do I explain this? This book is about a girl who is looking for her father. She's 18 years old. This guy, Mason, she always thought this guy was her father growing up. From like the age of like firstborn until she was 12. He was her daddy. He was the guy who, you know, bandaged her knee and raised her. And then at the age of 12, he left her life, and she doesn't understand why. Her mother won't tell her. And so she's 18 years old, and she finds out that this man who she thought was her father is not actually her father. And so at 18, she goes and she lives with him, and she's trying to find out who her actual father is. And in the meantime, she develops feelings for this man. And it is their relationship. And it takes forbidden and taboo to a whole other level. And it is extremely hot, and it's also extremely cringeworthy at the same time. I gave it 4 stars because the fact of the matter is, like, it tells you in the blurb exactly really what it's about. And I was turned on, and yet at the same time totally disgusted. Like, at the end of this book, I truly felt like I needed to take a shower because of how disgusted I felt reading it, but yet oddly, strangely, like, turned on at the same time. It was just a very weird experience for me, but I really enjoyed Margot Scott's writing, and I will definitely read more from her in the future. It was a 4-star read for me. The next book on my list is Bad Romeo by Lisa Raven. This is an oldie, but a goodie. It's a 5-star read for me. I freaking love this book. Okay, so this was Twilight fanfiction. I'm just gonna go throw that out there right now, and it gave me all the feels. It is basically a second chance romance between a couple of characters. It has kind of like this new adult feel, but it's not really a new adult romance. But it is written with 2 different timelines, so you get the before and you get the now. And it does go back and forth a little bit too much for my liking, but it was just so good that I didn't really care. Ethan is like this brooding asshole hero who I rooted for, and Cassie, I really enjoyed her character. She was not annoying at all. I really enjoyed the fact that she made him work for it. This is a hero who actually makes up for what he's done in the past, and there is some groveling in this book. I completely, wholeheartedly love this one, and I cannot wait to continue on with this series. The next book on my list is Entice by Ava Harrison. This book has every single trope that I possibly love in a romance. It is age gap, it is father's best friend, it's forbidden and taboo, and it has an asshole hero in it. Like, these are literally all, like, enticing words for me. Even the name, Entice. Like, this is everything that I should have loved in a book, and yet I was bored. I didn't really enjoy either one of the characters. It just didn't work for me. I don't really know what to put my finger on why it didn't work for me, but unfortunately it just didn't, and that really, really makes me sad because it's literally everything I love in the book, but I just found myself bored and not really connecting with the characters. This next book, I think I'm going to go on a rant, so if you don't want to hear about it, just fast forward because I despise this next book with a freaking passion. That's Temptation by Ivy Smoke. This book, 1.5 stars. Oh God. Okay. So this is about James and Penny. And James is a professor. Penny is a student. So obviously, student-teacher relationship. Here's the problem. The writing sucked. It was choppy. It was the first like third of the book was very well written. It had me hooked. I was super excited. I'm going, yes, this is going to be my next read. I actually bought this book after starting it because it was that good starting out. And then after like the first 30%, it was like somebody else completely wrote the next part of the book, because it just like, it went downhill and downhill and downhill, and to the point where it felt like I was reading two different authors who wrote this book. Obviously it wasn't, I don't think, but it was just really, really bad. So in this class that Penny is taking with this professor, it's kind of like a speech class. It's in college, and she has to write about certain things, and then she has to perform it in front of a classroom audience. And she is like super afraid to speak out in public, and so she will get nervous. But in this book, she would zone out throughout the entire class. Like, it was like, oh, I'm in class, but I'm not paying attention to what anybody's saying because I'm freaking out about having to talk for 2 minutes. So I zoned out the entire hour and a half class or something. Anytime that she was in the classroom, it was that same exact storyline over and over, repetitive and just ridiculous. Another thing that I really fucking hated about this book was that at the beginning, she goes to this party and one of her classmates is there, and he invited her. He is this, I don't know, like Brad guy, you know what I mean? Like one of those guys. So she goes to this party with him. He's in a fraternity. He's an asshole. He's drinking too much, and then he like tries to sexually assault her. And she ends up like kneeing him in the balls, which good for you, right? But what happens is that she falls in love with her professor super fast, and he like doesn't tell her something, and so she freaks out, and then she goes to this other guy who sexually assaulted her and starts dating him. What the fuck? I can't make this stuff up. And then she falls back in love with her professor after 2.5 seconds. And then it's like this weird like love triangle thing going on. This book was terrible. And then it ends in a cliffhanger on top of it. So there's that. The next book on my list is Fake It Till You Break It by Megan Brandy. I gave this 4 stars. It is a new adult romance. It is placed in high school. They are seniors, and it is between Nico and Demi. So this was actually really cute. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. Even though it is set in high school, it is definitely new adult. It is about Brandy, who is a dancer, and she kind of has really crappy parents. And then there's Nico, who has been her next door neighbor. He's actually been in love with her for years and years and years, and she's just kind of been oblivious to it. He never really bullied her or anything, but they were best friends, and then he kind of quit speaking with her. And now it's their senior year, and they are paired together in class, and they start to form this relationship, and it ends up being a fake dating relationship. And it is just really cute. And I love the fact that it was Nico who was pining for Demi and not the other way around. Typically, it's the woman who's been pining for this really hot guy. And in this case, he has been pining for his best friend for years. And he always knew he'd end up with her. But he was just kind of waiting his turn and knew that it was going to come. And it is the cutest little thing. I love this book. It is adorable. If you're looking for something that is fluffy and sweet, like not a huge amount of angst or anything, you just want something that's light and fluffy and makes you like feel good, this is totally a book for you. The next book I have to talk about is Corrupt. This is by Penelope Douglas. This was a reread for me, and I won't lie, like the first 70% of this book, I'm sitting there going, like while I'm reading it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why have I not given this 5 stars? It is so good. Like, it is scary and intriguing, and like Michael's a total asshole, but you kind of love him at the same time. And then the 70% mark happens, and I totally understand why I gave this 3 stars, and I totally agree with the fact that I gave this 3 stars. So I love asshole heroes. You guys know this about me. I love asshole heroes. It's just my thing. What I don't love so much is when assholes don't apologize for being assholes. I don't like it when there's no groveling. Like, give me a jerk, but like make him work for it, right? Like, if there's no working for it and you just like roll over, like, who are you as a heroine? Like, why would you do that? Rika is traumatized by the amount of bullshit he puts her through. And he literally never apologizes. Not once. And she just sleeps with him. Really? Enough said. 3 stars. The next book on my list is Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geisinger. So I went into this book completely blind. This was just I was cruising around on Kindle Unlimited. I saw this book. It looked interesting. I knew it was an alpha hero. I didn't really know anything else about this book, and I just jumped into it. So this turned out to be a mafia romance, and it is definitely an alpha hero. It had a really strong start, and it had a really strong ending to me. The middle of it was just, it was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. This was my first actual real mafia romance. I want to get into reading mafia romances, and I have several on my list, but I just haven't read them yet. This one was okay. I really enjoyed the hero. It had a lot of twists and turns that I wasn't seeing coming, but I really enjoyed it. I love the alpha hero aspect of it. There was some parts that were just a little too slow for my taste, but I really enjoyed the side characters, and I know there's a new book coming out very, very soon. And so I'm definitely looking forward to reading more into this series. So it was a pretty good read for me. The next book on my list is The Player. This is by Claire Contreras. So you guys know I'm obsessed with this cover. Like, to me, this is one of the hottest covers I've ever seen. This guy is stunning, gorgeous. I want to know who he is because I just want to lick his abs. But this book, I gave it 3.5 stars. Told you I was on at like a 3-star kick. Okay, so let me tell you why. But first of all, this is a soccer romance. It is about Camilla and what was his name? Calvin? God, I don't even remember that. Okay, so this is about Calvin and Camilla. There's one specific thing that happened in this book that brought it from like a solid 4-star read to like a 3-star read. And that is, the hero in this book did something to me that was completely unforgivable. So Calvin is a soccer player. He lives and plays in Manchester. He's in New York for a short time, like 3 weeks, and that's where he meets Camilla. I don't really want to get into the major plot of this book, but the reason why I want to bring this up is because in the middle of the book, what Calvin does is he asks Camilla, who is kind of from the poor side of town, to go home with him and for just a couple of weeks to visit. He wants to show her his hometown. He wants to show her, because he's a big hotshot over there where he's not really famous here. He's super famous there. And that all actually seemed really realistic to me, and I was enjoying it. So Camilla actually takes off work and goes, and he buys her a ticket, and they go, and they're having a good time. She kind of meets up with some snotty people, and everything was realistic up to that point. The issue that I had is that this guy supposedly was hardcore in love with Camilla, right? At this, it's like the halfway mark, he's in love with her, and he brings her to his home, they do all this stuff, and then he leaves her there so he can go practice and do this and do that, and he ends up leaving her for long stretches at a time. Where she has really nothing to do, and she can't really call home, she can't really do anything, she's another continent away. And then he comes in and he says, hey, I'm gonna take you out, wear jeans, get dressed up, I'll be back in a couple of hours. So she gets dressed and ready, and she's waiting for him, and he doesn't show. And she ends up falling asleep, and it's in the middle of the night, and she goes out and she sees him playing soccer, just practicing and stuff, and she goes out there, and he tells her he forgot that she was there. What? This is the hero of the story talking to his heroine, his one true love, his person, and he's like already professing his love for her, and he forgets that she's there? No, sorry. That's kind of like an unforgivable offense to me. And she didn't even make him grovel for it. So girl, no. No. Oh, also, it's not Calvin, it's Warren. That's why I didn't remember this name. That was my next name. Sorry. So this book is about Warren and Camilla. The next book I have to talk about is Wrecking Ball. This is by P. D'Angelico. And this book is about Calvin and Cam. I totally got that mixed up. So Wrecking Ball is about Calvin. Calvin is a NFL player. Very similar romances that I read back to back. So Cam is a girl who just got out of a marriage. Her husband died. He was operating a Ponzi scheme, and then he dies and leaves her to deal with all the wreckage of this ridiculous Ponzi scheme that he had been operating and stealing money from people. And so her name is now completely tarnished. She has to move back in with her parents, and she ends up finding a job being a nanny for none other than Calvin Shaw, who's this big hotshot NFL player. And he finds out who she is after he hires her, but his nephew, who he is taking care of for the time being, has really taken with Cam, and so he doesn't want to mess with that, and so he continues to allow her to be the nanny, and it is their romance, and it is so sweet. He is kind of a bit of an asshole hero, and they have this hate-to-love relationship that I really enjoyed. This was a solid 4-star read for me. The next book that I have to talk about is Hideaway. This is also a reread. It is by Penelope Douglas. It is the second in the Devil's Night series. And this one is about Kai and Nick, or Banks. And so I actually didn't remember a thing about this book. It was like I was reading it for the first time. Like, there was only like 2 or 3 small details that I actually remembered. So that tells me this book wasn't like the best book ever written by Penelope Douglas. I hate to say that, but I just truly did not remember anything about this book. So this is about Kai, who is kind of on the lost side. He is the nicest of the 4, in my opinion, but he is just really, really lost. And Banks is somebody he knew in his past, and he kind of chased her, and they had their own Devil's Night a couple of years before Rika and Michael did, and she is now back, and we find out that she is a certain somebody's sister, and it has some really, really cute moments in it. I liked the jealousy scene. I liked the fact that there was a little tiny bit of girl-on-girl action that was actually quite attractive and hot. Okay, guys, my next book. Everybody talked about this. I wanted to film a video of, like, me reading it, and I started to, and then I started reading it. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying I am a twihard. Hardcore twihard. I have this huge movie poster still on my wall to this day. I have read the original 4 books 12 times each. No joke. I am obsessed with the original 4. I love Twilight. It is one of my favorite things of all time. I do not apologize for it. I find nothing wrong with it. I know lots of people find the fact that he, like, stalked her in her bedroom wrong. I'm sorry. I don't care. As an 18-year-old, I fucking love that shit. Like, I wish I had my own Edward to stalk my ass while I'm sleeping. Like, please, come on. This book was boring as fuck. I'm sorry. I gave it 3 stars. It was so boring. It was so boring. There was a couple of really cool moments in there that was new and that I really enjoyed. Other than that, Edward annoyed the fuck out of me. Oh my gosh. It was like emo boy. Like, he's 109, but he acts like he's genuinely 17. It was, oh, woe is me. I want to kill her all the time, so I can't be near her, but I love her, but I need her, but I can't be, oh, the angst and the emo. Ugh, it was boring. It was so boring. It was just like twice as long as it should be. Like, literally twice as long. I found myself literally, like, wanting desperately for it to just, I hate to say that. I'm such a Twilight fan, and I really didn't like this book. Okay, I said it. All right, next book. The next book I have to talk about. It's going downhill. Just telling you now. I read Real. This is by Katie Evans. Oh boy. Y'all. This book was cringy as fuck. The amount of times that he smelled her. Like, you would think he's a vampire, right? He, like, was obsessed with, like, like, I pictured some, like, sleazy, like, buffed up muscle dude going over and over. It was really creepy. He had bipolar. That was the only thing I actually enjoyed about this book, was the fact that there was a very decent mental illness rep. I don't know. I don't have bipolar, so I can't tell you if it was a real representation, but I like the fact that it was in here. Other than that, there was not a thing I liked about this book. I gave it 2 stars. The next book I have to talk about is Forever Theirs. This is a Thelanian Dynasty book. It is by Katie Robert. So the first book was free on Kindle Unlimited. I read it back on the Smudathon. I think a lot of people were reading it. In fact, I think that was the book of the week. Is a menage or polyamorous relationship between a prince, a bodyguard, and a regular common girl from New York. And the first book I loved. I gave it, I think, 5 stars. The second book I gave 4 stars. It is a full-length novel. I enjoyed this. This was actually my first full-on polyamorous relationship that I read, like full novel. And it is about Theo, Galen, and Megan. And Theo and Galen are, like I said, the prince and the bodyguard. They've been best friends since they were like young, like 15 or 16, and they've been together that entire time. But they also separately like women on their own. This is the first real like threesome menage relationship for all of them. And it just worked. I really enjoyed the fact that it was kind of a give and take between all 3 of them. There wasn't any kind of major jealousy. They all really, truly loved each other and had this special bond. And there was some super, super hot scenes in this book. Like, ridiculously hot. However, I feel like the author was trying to write this series in just 3 books, and one of them was just a short novella, and there was so much to this story, and there were so many side characters, and there was so much that was just left unsaid. So I'm just going to talk. I gave this one 4 stars. I gave the last book, which is Forever Theirs Ever After. So the second book is Forever Theirs. The third book is Theirs Ever After. I gave that one 3 stars. It is also about the same couple. It is the conclusion, and I enjoyed it. I loved the actual relationship between them, but I didn't quite feel the actual love connection. Like, I totally felt the lust, but I didn't feel the love. And there was so much just left unsaid. I wanted to know how Galen and Theo actually started their relationship, just the 2 of them back when they were younger. Like, how did that start? I wanted to know about the side characters. There was this major thing that happened in the 3rd book, like major. And there were so many side characters, and I wanted to know, like, what actually happened to those side characters. Like, they got caught. What happened to them? And it just kind of like, it was like she didn't want to write another book about it, so she just wrapped it up in like 20 pages, and there was just so much left unsaid. So this was actually a book where I felt like it literally needed another book. It needed really more in-depth. There's just so much left out that I felt like it really could have improved upon and been like a really, really 5-star read if she would have just gone there a little bit more. But it was still really good, and I still would recommend it. I just would say that if you're looking for like a complete finished where you feel like, oh, that ended and it's wrapped up and I had no questions, that's not going to be the book for you. But if you really want a really hot menage poly relationship, that was really hot. The next book I have to talk about is Under Lock. This is by Mariana Zapata. I really enjoy Mariana Zapata's works. So Lingus is my favorite Mariana Zapata book. I really enjoyed Colty and Willow Winnipeg and Me, but they weren't like my favorite things ever. And this was kind of along that line. Like I gave it 3.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed the book. I didn't want to put it down. This is about Dex and Iris. I loved Iris as a character. I somewhat enjoyed Dex sometimes, kind of. My issue is that there is a fine line between an asshole hero and being verbally abusive. And I love a good asshole hero, but I don't love somebody who is verbally or mentally abusive. And he was. He crossed that line to me. Like, he would yell and scream at her in front of a group of people and embarrass her. There was moments, he has anger issues, and there was, I mean, it was just, the story overall was super good. I really enjoyed the plot line of it, but I think he took being an asshole to a level that I just was not comfortable with, so I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book on my list is My Commander. This is by Elena Alder. I gave this 3 stars. This book is funny, but it's also super cheesy. So this is a paranormal romance. It is about a bear shifter and his fated mate. So it is very insta-lovey. Very, very insta-lovey. But it's also kind of / love, hate to love at first. Like, she's a human. She, finds her way onto this mystical world, and she is immediately turned into a mate. Like, this guy sees her and is like, that's my mate. So he does a mate thing where he comes in, sniffs her, grabs her, and takes her to his room. And she thinks that he is kidnapping her, so she hits him upside the head with a toilet. And there's a lot of funny antics in this, but it's also straight up oh, I kissed him and now he's my mate, and I feel this instant connection. So it's super, super insta-lovey for my taste, and there just wasn't enough buildup of their relationship for me to feel the love between the main characters. The world building was really, really cool. There were some moments that I really enjoyed and thought, wow, this would be awesome as a world building. But it's very obvious that this is the author's first writing, and it was just a little choppy and a little all over the place. It was very, very funny, but it just wasn't very well done. It's very funny. I enjoyed the world building. It just needed more fine tuning. The next book on my list is The Doctor by Nikki Sloan. This is about Greg and Cassidy. I gave this book 5 stars. I'm just going to say it now. This book is the dirty cousin of Birthday Girl. It is the exact same book, but it hits differently. It's down and dirty. It truly feels really, really forbidden and wrong. Whereas Birthday Girl was more of a slow build relationship where it felt authentic and sweet, and it didn't really feel wrong or nasty, or the girl wasn't really doing anything wrong. It was kind of sweet compared to this book. This book is down, dirty, I'm gonna break up with my boyfriend, and the same night I'm going to kiss his father. It is just straight up down and dirty. So this girl is with this guy, and he's not really treating her right. They've been together for 3 years, and so she breaks up with him, and like I said, that same night she ends up going and she sees his father, and his father basically that same night has no idea that she broke up with him, and is you deserve better than my son. He's treating you wrong. He's not in the right headspace. You deserve better. You should break up with him. And she basically says, well, I just broke up with him. And they kiss, and they have this little moment. And then it just kind of happens again and again and again and again. And this whole time, her boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend is still thinking they're together. He doesn't really think that it's a serious ending. And she keeps she's breaking up with him 3 and 4 times, and he finally gets it. And of course, you know what to expect at the end, but it's just down and dirty. You just kind of feel a little tiny touch wrong reading this book, but it's just so hot. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. On to the 2 books that I'm currently reading. I am currently reading Disgrace. This is by Brittany C. Cherry. I am halfway through this book right now. I have never felt so stabby over characters in my life. I have literally want to reach through the screen or the page. I'm actually listening to this one on audiobook, but I want to just reach through and I want to stab several characters. There's so much in this book that I hate. I cried after 10 pages. Like, I'm just so frustrated with this book, but it's so good. It's so good. The next book that I'm currently reading is Dark Notes. This is by Pam Godwin. I am actually reading the book of this one. I am 170 pages through this book, and I don't think I like it so far. I like it enough, like I like the writing enough that I'm going to finish this book. But right now, I just kind of feel sad for this character. I mean, she's gone through so much. She's very, very sexually abused, and this is a teacher-student romance. It has been highly, highly recommended all over BookTube. It's why I picked it up. Everybody's been recommending this book. I hope it gets better because right now I just genuinely feel bad for her, and I kind of feel like this teacher is more abusive than helpful, and I hope he gets better because right now I feel like he's taking things too far with her. I feel like he's not treating her right. I feel like she just needs somebody better than him. And I hope that I start to like the main character, the hero, more. Because right now I'm just really not enjoying him. But I hope it gets better. Okay, I've talked to you guys ears off, so I'm going to get off here. I hope you guys have had fun. Let me know what you've been reading in the comments below. Is there anything that you would recommend? Any kind of forbidden, taboo romance? That's obviously my favorite trope. So let me know in the comments below what you're reading, what you would recommend. I will talk to you guys very soon.